In this video, I'm going to go over 10 skills that if you can master these, it's going to help you attract more money than you ever thought was possible. And I'm going to jump right in, starting with number one, which is learning from your mistakes. And a lot of people like to talk about this in a very general sense, but I'll show you exactly what this means if you really want to use this as a tool to help accelerate your wealth. Because what I understood was that I was good at working hard. But what I learned the hard way was that I was not good at investing my money, and I was not good at running a business. What do I mean? When I started investing my money, I was in college. I started off by investing my money in real estate because during this time, real estate prices were getting hit very hard because of the 2008 crash. My first rental property I purchased back in 2011. It was a small 1,000 square foot condo that I bought out of foreclosure for $8,000. Now, it sounds great, but I made every single mistake possible. I had a bad tenant in there that I found myself. I had a bad property management company. I had a bad contractor that I was working with. Everything that I was around, I was making mistakes because I didn't know what I was doing. And it didn't get fixed the first time. The third deal that I did was the worst real estate deal to date that I have done. It was my nightmare property. I made a video about it on YouTube where everything that you could imagine went wrong and more. You know, I read a lot of books that say, every real estate investor has one really bad deal. This is mine. So I want you guys to learn from my mistakes. This is not something to teach you in business books or even something to talk about in real estate books. So I want you guys to learn from my mistakes so you don't make the same mistakes as I did because it was very expensive. I spent so much money on this property in renovations that I spent more money in renovations than I did to actually purchase the house. And then I had to sell the property because of how many mistakes that I did. But even though I screwed up again and again and again, I knew that if I could figure out how to do it the right way, that I would be able to scale this real estate part of my business. It took me a lot of time, but I didn't give up. I didn't stop. The reason why was because I looked at some of the more successful real estate investors out there. And I said, if these people like Donald Trump can manage thousands of units, I can manage 5. I can figure out how to do 5 rental properties. Because I knew if you have 100 units, there's gonna be 100 different issues happening at the same time. And you can't manage all 100 units. I just had to figure out how I can build those systems. And so I had to figure out, how do I stop screwing up? And for me, I had to learn the hard way, which is I had to screw up multiple times before I learned how to do it the right way. Most people learn after 1 screw up. It takes me 3 screw ups to figure out how to do something the right way. It was the same thing with running a business. It took me try after try to figure out how to really run a business the right way. Even with Briefs Media, it took me time and a lot of expensive mistakes to figure out how do you build a good team? How do you actually grow? How do you manage a team? Which meant sometimes we had to go through restructuring, which means we had to let people go who weren't keeping up with our culture, who weren't keeping up with what we needed to do. And that was difficult for me because I had to figure out how do I let people go. But I had to go through these mistakes to figure out how I could run a business the right way. And this is what I knew that I was good at, was working hard. That was something that I learned from a young age, that hard work was something that I needed to do. And luckily, I was good at that. But I wasn't good here or here. And so I used what I was good at, which was hard work, to keep getting better here and keep getting better here. And so what can help you is if you can realize what are you good at, what are you not good at, and use what you're good at to help you improve at what you're not good at, if that's going to help you scale your income. Number 2 is learn how to manage risk. And the best example that I can give you of this is to think like an immigrant. I was talking to my dad about this a couple of days ago because my dad immigrated from his home state of Punjab in India and came to America, and he had very little money. He had less than a couple $100s in his pocket when he came to this country. And I asked him, how did that feel? To come to a new country where you don't know anything, you don't know the people, you don't know the culture, you don't know the language, you don't know really anything, all for a shot for something bigger. And what he said is, well, when you're giving up everything, the risk is kind of irrelevant at that point because you've already risked everything. You're leaving your parents, you're leaving your friends, you're leaving everything you know to go somewhere else, and so now you can really do whatever you want. And so this is where now a lot of people hold themselves back from wanting to do something because you're scared of the risk. And the reason why is because you have a comfortable job, you have a comfortable salary, you have a comfortable 401k, you have the comfortable insurance, you have these nice things that feel nice, which is fine if you're happy with that. If you're comfortable and you're happy with what you have, fine. But if you're not, you got to let go of some of that comfort. That way you can get to something bigger, and you got to understand that that comes with risk. You can either risk your time or you can risk your money. An immigrant is going to risk everything. But if you're already in a society, in a culture where you have the opportunity to do something, if you have the opportunity to potentially start a business, you have the opportunity to invest your money more aggressively, well, now what you got to do is take that risk. You got to give up some of these comfortable things that you have that make life great. having the nice stuff, having the nice salary, having the nice cushy kind of lifestyle, and now making that risk, that way you can have something even bigger 5 years from now. Number 3 is the skill of resilience. And what I mean by that is understanding that you don't want to get caught up in this whole I am a victim culture. And I'll give you an example of this because I started to really build this channel back in 2016. And when I was just getting started, I was doing a lot of different things to try to grow this channel, to try to get exposure for the minority mindset and myself. And so one of the things that I was doing was I was reaching out to different media outlets, trying to get exposure for the minority mindset brand. And remember, this is back in 2016. That was the President Trump election with Hillary Clinton. So there was a lot of things happening in the news as well. And when I was reaching out to these media outlets, again, I was pretty small. I was getting a lot of rejections. Pretty much everybody was rejecting me, but I got a couple responses. And the responses that I got were people saying, you know what, we don't want to talk about the financial stuff, but what we do want to talk to you about is how hard it was for you to start a YouTube channel or to do these things that you're doing, being a brown guy with a turban and a beard. And so it felt very off to me because you want me to come and talk about how it is so hard for me, so you should watch my channel because it was difficult for me to get here, as opposed to I have good content and watch my content because it's good. I didn't like that. That just didn't sit well with me. And unfortunately, sometimes, or a lot of times, we're kind of breeding this culture where, you know what, it's hard for you. And because it's hard for you, we should feel bad for you. And because we feel bad for you, you should feel bad for you. But you're not going to get anywhere you want to go just because people are feeling bad for you or because you're feeling bad for you. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes people are racist. Sometimes people are stupid. That happens. It's a part of life. Now what you can do is go to the bathroom, feel bad for yourself for 15 minutes, let it out. Once you're done, once you open the door and come back out, now you got to move past it and keep moving. That's what the skill of resilience is to not put this whole card of, oh, feel bad for me because I'm this certain way or because I had this certain thing happen to me. No, it's despite whatever happened, I'm going to go out and do it. I'm going to be the best at what I do because I want to be the best. Number 4 is the skill of thinking bigger than you. This one took me years to figure out because I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't really understand what it meant to build a business, because what it meant to me in the beginning was I'm going to create my own job and I'm going to create a very high demand job that, number 1, if I don't do something, I don't get paid. I have to work a lot of hours and I'm still not going to make that much money. That was my idea of entrepreneurship. I loved it in the beginning because, hey, I'm creating my own income. And yeah, I like the grind, I'm working, I'm hustling, but I wasn't actually building anything. I started off in the event planning space. This is back when I was in college. I started an event planning company and it grew pretty big, especially for somebody who was in college. But the problem was, if I wasn't hosting parties, if I wasn't planning an event, if I wasn't hosting these things, I wasn't getting paid. Now, yeah, I was making good money, but the problem was it completely relied around me. And so that's when I started doing different things. Well, I got involved with real estate. I started investing in real estate, but I learned very quickly that if I don't have more money, I can't buy more real estate. So I got my real estate salesperson's license and I did okay with that. But the problem again with my real estate salesperson's license going out and selling real estate was, if I wasn't selling you a home, I'm not getting paid. So now I went back on the hunt. And now I'm trying to figure out, what can I do to think bigger than me? We're going to jump back into the video in just a second. But before we do, here are a few words from our sponsor, Fundrise. But before I give you this advertisement, I do have to give you a disclaimer, which is that I do have some of my own personal money invested in Fundrise, and I also own some equity in the Fundrise company as well. If you've been thinking about investing in real estate, but you don't want to deal with the headache of property ownership, Fundrise makes it easy for anybody to get exposure to real estate investments with as little as $10. And now you don't have to worry about going out and buying a property yourself. You don't have to worry about managing tenants, and you don't have to worry about unclogging toilets. The way it works is you invest your money into Fundrise and you're getting exposure to a portfolio of real estate properties. And then you will get paid your share of appreciation and cash flow if your fund makes money. Remember, this is investing at the end of the day. Investing has risks. You are never guaranteed to make money when you invest. In fact, you will probably lose money at some point. So make sure you always do your own due diligence and never blindly trust a random guy on YouTube. The nice thing about Fundrise though is now you can passively invest your money into real estate without having to deal with all the headache of property ownership. Second, Fundrise has an auto invest feature. That way, if you want to continually invest more money into real estate, you can do that through Fundrise. And third, they have a very cool dashboard that you can use to track the progress of your investments. Now, the last thing that I want to remind you is that when you invest your money in Fundrise or real estate in general, your money is not as liquid as it is when you invest your money into the stock market. So you have to remember, if you're going to invest your money in real estate. Whether it's to buy an individual property or to invest your money into a fund through Fundrise, you are investing your money for the long term because you're investing your money in real estate. So if you want to learn more and see how you can start investing with Fundrise, I got the link to how you can do that down in the description below. Minority Mindset is a paid partner with Fundrise, meaning if you use them, we will get compensated, but there's no additional cost to you. So if you want to learn more and see how you can start investing in real estate through Fundrise, I got the link to how you can do that down in the description below, where you can go to theminoritymindset.com/Fundrise. That's theminoritymindset.com/Fundrise. And with that, we'll go back to the show. I got involved with e-commerce. I started to see some more success there. I was making money with everything that I did, which I was fortunate about. And the smart thing that I did was when I made money, I invested it. I was taking the money and I was buying more rental properties. And now I got involved with e-commerce. The problem was, it wasn't something that I really cared about. I started a sock company, which was nice. I was making good money. We had a great launch. The problem was I didn't have that great passion for socks. It was just something that I figured, okay, this is something that now I can scale. But it didn't give me that real fulfillment. So then at the same time, I started making videos on YouTube, which was great. But the problem was, even as a YouTuber, guess what? This is not a business, because if I stop making videos, the ad revenue stops coming in. And so now I had to figure out, how can I build something that if I took a vacation, if I took a month off, that the business can continue running. I can't do that with YouTube. I can make a lot of money with YouTube, but I can't call it a business because I can't sell the business. I can't take myself out and put somebody else in. I even tried that. I tried it on multiple occasions where I had multiple people make videos on this channel thinking that I could turn this channel into a business, but that wasn't what it was. This channel was for me, my personal brand, and people that watched it knew that. And so I had to figure out, how do I build a business? Now, I talked about how I was not good at building a business first. I tried first by building a blog on the Minority Mindset. And 2 or 3 years, and $500,000 later, that blog went nowhere. So then I went back to the drawing board, and that's when I started Briefs Media, because now we can build products like Market Briefs, which is a free financial newsletter that goes out every day that I don't write. And you don't want me to write it, because I have much smarter writers than I am. They can write much better than I can write. They can break down the financial news into a way that is super simple and easy to understand. And you don't need me to sit there and write it. I can work on the bigger picture. I can work on the brand. I can work on the vision. I can work on the other products to help grow the business. And now I'm building a real business that doesn't necessarily need me. If I took a week off, your newsletters are still going to be coming. The business is going to keep running. Our other products are going to keep going. And that's what I realized, that if I wanted to build a business, I had to think bigger than me. And that was the only way that I could do something that didn't rely on just my work. Number 5 is the skill of delegation. And that means paying somebody else. That way you have time to do something else. And the reason why this skill is so difficult is because it requires a cash outflow from you. And what every entrepreneur or every financially savvy person does is, when you start earning money, you want to keep this money for yourself. You don't want to let go of this money, but the whole idea of delegation is you're going to start letting go of this money so you can have some of your time back. Now, of course, the goal is so you can have more money. But it's difficult to conceptualize that as soon as you start earning this money, because you work so hard to get it. You don't want to start letting go of it, and you don't know if somebody else can do as good of a job as you. You don't know if somebody else is going to perform like you, and you know that this person is going to 100% take money. So you're going to have to pay a fee, but you don't know if you're going to get any return from it. That's why it's scary. That's why it's risky. But if you ever want to be able to grow and do more things and build more wealth, you have to be able to delegate. The first time I learned about this was when I started investing in real estate. And I remember I would talk to people about this, people that were older than me, about how I wanted to hire a property manager. The reason why I wanted to hire a property manager was because all the real estate books that I read talked about how if you wanted to actually be an investor, you need to be a property manager. And I personally hated the idea of dealing with tenants. I worked in customer service before. I used to work at Auntie Anne's Pretzels, and I don't like dealing with customers in that sense, especially when, somebody's upset. So that wasn't something that I was good at, and I knew I didn't want to do that. Plus, I was also in college at the time. So I wanted to hire a property manager. And I would talk to people older than me about this idea of hiring a property manager, and I got all this negativity out of it that, why would you not pay somebody 10% of your rental income? That's coming right off of the top. You could do it yourself. I mean, how many things is a tenant really going to need? And do you want to know the worst part? The first time I bought a rental property and I had a property manager, my property manager was horrible. They didn't do anything. The tenants had my number directly. Anytime something went wrong, you know who they called? They called me. They didn't call the property manager. So yeah, in the beginning, it was a complete waste of money. because they didn't do anything. But I knew that I wanted to be in the business of managing a portfolio as opposed to managing the properties. And the only way for me to focus on growing the portfolio and building a portfolio and not managing the properties was if I could hire somebody good to manage the day-to-day. And that comes at a price. And most of the times when you think about paying somebody else to do something, it is so difficult because number one, you got to pay the money, which is hard. Number two is you got to trust them. And number three, if they screw up, it comes back to you. Well, this is where you got to understand that there's a cost to doing business. And you're going to deal with screw ups. In the real estate space, I've dealt with many bad property managers. I've had to fire many property managers, but I've also found some great property managers. And when you find that great property manager, you know what they do? They make your life a whole lot easier because now they're the ones that are dealing with tenants. They're the ones that are dealing with all the day-to-day stuff. They're the ones that are dealing with contractors. They're the ones that are dealing with the city halls. They're the ones that are dealing with the attorneys. And I get a report every month and every quarter talking about how are the properties are doing, what are the renovations that are happening, how much money was made. And now I just monitor what's going on from behind the scenes and you let the property manager do their thing. But in order to do that, you have to understand the skill of delegation. Number 6 is the skill of compounding. And there's 3 different types of compounding I want you to understand. Number 1 is compounding your money. Number 2 is compounding your efforts. And number 3 is compounding your learning. Starting with the compounding money, because this is a financial channel and probably the most easy to understand. When you put your money to work, you get bigger dollar returns when you have more dollars invested. Give you an example of what I mean. If I have $1,000 and I can get a 10% return on my money, it doesn't seem very attractive because a 10% return on a $1,000 investment is $100. And I have to wait a year to get the $100 if it's a 10% annualized return. So it doesn't seem like a very attractive investment. But now let's play this out with a little bit bigger dollars. What if now instead of me investing $1,000 and getting a 10% return, I was investing $100,000? Now a 10% return is $10,000 over the course of a year. Not bad. But what if it was $1 million? Now a 10% return on $1 million is $100,000. That's a pretty nice chunk of change. But a 10% return on $5 million is $500,000. Now we're talking some serious money. And this is where a lot of people get discouraged because you think, wow, if I want to actually make any money from my investments, I have to have millions of dollars put aside before I can get any real return. And you just get so overwhelmed because you think I need $1 million before I can make $100,000 a year from my investments. I'm just not going to do it because it's so overwhelming. It feels like this huge hurdle, this huge mountain you have to climb. But the best way to climb a mountain isn't by thinking of the top, it's by thinking about the next step. And it's just taking one small step at a time. And that's how you build wealth. And that's what compounding is all about. It's putting in a little bit of money, letting that little bit of money grow, putting in more money, letting that more money grow along with the original money, putting a little bit more money, let the last money grow, the first money grow. That's what compounding is all about. I mean, if you could double a penny every day for 30 days, that penny is going to grow to over $5 million in just 30 days if you can just double it and double it and double it every single day. Now, when it comes to your investments, you're not going to be able to double your money every single day. But the whole idea here is you keep putting your money to work. That way you can let your money compound and so you can let your money grow. But it's not just your money that can compound. It's also your learning and your effort. When it comes to your learning, I didn't grow up with financial education. I didn't grow up with entrepreneurial education. I had to screw up a lot and I had to learn a lot. And the way that I learned was by reading books. These were not textbooks. English is my second language. I did not enjoy reading textbooks. I didn't enjoy reading the books that I had in my English class, which is why I avoided those. But once I started reading books about money management, financial education, building a business, starting a business, people management, that was interesting to me. And that was something that I couldn't stop consuming. And I made it a rule for myself that I was going to read every single day before I went to sleep. I don't care what time I was going to sleep. I don't care what was going on. I was going to read a little bit or listen to these books a little bit because I didn't like reading. I would listen to the books more often than not. And that's what I did. Now, when you think about that, it can seem kind of trivial. What's the big deal? Just going to sleep when you're tired. Well, the thing is, when you kind of set that discipline for yourself that you're going to read 10 pages a day every single day, that starts to add up because then 10 pages over 30 days is 300 pages. You just read a whole book. And if you do that the next month, you just read a whole nother book. But the problem is when you stop doing that and you don't kind of set that rule for yourself, especially in the beginning, it's very easy to let Saturday and Sunday off. And then Tuesday also because you had a long day on Tuesday. And then Thursday, you went out with your wife. So it's kind of difficult because you kind of got busy that day. And now, instead of reading 300 pages, you ended up reading 40. And the scale now, how fast you can learn versus when somebody's reading 300 pages a month and somebody else is reading 40 pages a month, well, you can start to see how that looks over the course of a year. Over the course of a year, somebody reading 300 pages a month is going to read 3,600 pages over the year. That's 12 books over the year. Somebody reading 40 pages a month is going to read only 1.5 books over the course of a year. You're talking about 480 pages over the course of a year versus somebody who read 12 books. And that's where the compounding of learning comes into play, is when you keep learning a little bit every single day. Guess what? What you're learning today is compounding off of yesterday and the day before. But if you're not learning yesterday, you have nothing to compound on top of. And it's the same with your efforts. If you make a little bit of progress each and every day, sometimes you might not notice much and it doesn't feel like anything, but you are playing that long game where you're just chipping away at building your wealth, at building your skills, at building a business, at refining the way that you succeed. And that's how you build real wealth. It's by chipping away one small piece at a time. Everybody wants the destination. Everybody wants the cake. Everybody wants to be at the top of the mountain. But in order to get there, you got to take the steps. And you know what? When you try to just sprint there, you're going to give up, because nobody can sprint up a mountain for that long. But if you walk slowly, you have a much better chance to get there, as long as you just keep making little progress each and every day. The 7th skill that I want you to master is the skill of communication. Notice I didn't say sales. I said communication. Now, sales is very important. It is extremely important as an entrepreneur. But what I think is even more important is the skill of communication. I'll tell you why. I'm not the greatest salesperson, but I've hired some amazing salespeople. But in order for me to hire the best salespeople, I had to communicate the things that we need to get done. What I learned throughout my career is that selling isn't something that I am the best at. I have met some amazing salespeople who can know how to sell you anything. They can sell ice to somebody in Alaska. I think that's what the saying is. For me, not something I'm the best at. I think I'm okay at selling. I think I'm actually pretty good at selling, but I'm definitely not the best. And it's just something that is not that interesting to me. But for me, what I understand is I like being able to communicate the value. And I want somebody to understand why I have a certain thing, why I'm doing a certain thing. This skill of communication is so important. It's because this is what can help you delegate to other people. It's what can help you convince other people to want to work with you. It's what can help you to find the great salespeople and have them win for you. Is if you can communicate what needs to be done, and then you can hire a great salesperson. But in order for you to hire anybody, you have to be able to communicate exactly what you want and to get people on the same page as you. It's different between going out and selling a product. It's getting people excited and getting people about the same page about what it is that you're trying to do. But you have to be able to communicate your message, your vision, and your product and purpose so everybody's on the same page of what it is that you're trying to do. The 8th skill that you need to master is the skill of delayed gratification. This one is probably the most financial and the easiest to understand, because if you want to have more money tomorrow, that means you got to spend less money today so you have more money saved, so you have more money invested. And this one is hard because it requires you to make real financial sacrifice. But the reality is if you want to have anything next month, next year, the year after that, you're going to have to make a sacrifice today. And that means when you make $1,000, you can't spend all $1,000. Because if you spend all your money, you're going to go through your career, make a lot of money over the course of your career, and have nothing to show for it. That's unfortunately the majority of Americans. If you're making $50,000 a year, well, over the course of a decade, you made $500,000. Over the course of 2 decades, you made $1 million. Over the course of 4 decades, you made $2 million. And most people will have nothing to show for it except some nice stuff and some pictures on their iPhone. But if you really want to have some wealth, what you got to understand now is it's all about earning that money, not spending all that money, and taking the money you don't spend and putting that to work. That way you can earn your more money. That way you have real wealth outside of just you spending the money that you earn. Skill number 9 is independence of thought. And this one is so personal to me because, well, it's the whole premise of the minority mindset. Minority mindset is this idea of thinking differently than the majority people. And independence of thought is being willing to have an opinion, to have a thought, and act on it even when nobody else believes in you. See, when I was getting started on my entrepreneurial journey, I had to do it in secret. My parents wanted me to be a doctor. They really, really wanted me to be a doctor to the point that if I did anything else, it would be considered a failure. And so when I started my entrepreneurial journey, when I started investing in real estate, I had to do these things in secret because my parents would not approve. I mean, I told my dad that I wanted to invest in real estate, but he was so against the idea because it was a distraction from me trying to become a doctor. But what was important to me was understanding I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to achieve this financial success. I didn't know how I was going to get there. Originally, I thought that the best path to get there was being a doctor, but what I realized is I didn't like the idea of being a doctor. I liked the idea of starting a business. I liked the idea of learning about financial education. I liked the idea of building a business. I just didn't understand how to go about doing it yet. And that required a lot of independence of thought. And then along with that is the whole idea of what do you do with the money that you earn? Because guess what? In today's society, the collective thought is make money, drive a BMW, make money, wear them fancy clothes, make money, go on the nice vacations. But when I started making money, I did none of those things because I wanted to secure my wealth first. I wanted to secure my investments first. And it was weird because people who were making less money than me were driving much nicer cars than me. People who were making less money than me were living in nicer apartments than me. People who were making less money than me were going on way fancier vacations and posting all about it on Instagram while I wasn't. And it took a lot of self-control and discipline to say, okay, you know what? Just because I have all these nicer things doesn't mean I'm losing. I want to do something different. And you got to build the independence of thought. And it's a real thick skin because sometimes people will make you feel bad. When you're driving around in the beat up car or not doing the things that everybody else is doing, when they think that this is what you should be doing, because everybody has an opinion on what you should do with your money, it's difficult. But you gotta build the independence of thought and be willing to stand behind your beliefs. That way you can get to where you wanna go because nobody else is gonna take you there. Only you can take you where you wanna go. And skill number 10 is the skill of letting go of jealousy. Jealousy can kill your ability to succeed, especially with Instagram, especially with everything that we have on social media. Because guess what? Nowadays, people love showing off what they have, which is fine, right? You want to show off what you got? That's great. But what happens to a lot of people, especially if you can't master the skill of not getting jealous, is you get jealous very quickly. And so now instead of being excited somebody else bought their dream car, what ends up happening? You get angry, you get resentful, and now you get upset at yourself for where you are. You don't like that person because they got what you wanted, and you're mad at yourself because you didn't get where you wanted to go. And that doesn't do anything productive. It's unproductive for the rest of the world because you're sending out all this negativity because you're hating somebody else's success. And then secondly, you're getting mad at yourself. And now you're beating yourself up, which is not going to help you get to where you want to go. And this is where, if you can start flipping the script and being happy for other people, and I mean genuinely happy. When you see somebody do something big, be genuinely happy for them. When you see somebody do something that you wish you could have done, be genuinely happy for them. It changes your outlook on life. It changes your perception of life. It changes your attitude towards the entire day. And now what you can do, when you don't have the negativity coming out, you can continue to focus on you because now you realize, okay, you know what? People are doing their own thing. I'm in my own lane. I'm doing my own thing. What they do doesn't affect me. I'm just going to continue working on my own grind. I'm going to continue working on whatever it is that I'm doing, and I'm in whatever position that I am, and I'm going to be happy for other people. And hopefully other people will be happy for me when I keep growing. Because when you fill yourself up with that negative energy, it's very hard to continue building that business. It's very hard to continue building that wealth. But you got to remember, what you're putting out there starts with your mindset. And you got to invest in building that strong mindset. Work has a lot of different definitions, but you have to start thinking about what is this mental retirement that I want to have, because if you don't start thinking about this sooner, you're going to get closer and closer to retirement and have no idea what you're going to want to do. If you have parents who don't have hobbies, you know exactly what I mean, because all they know how to do is work and sit at home and watch TV. Well, when you get rid of the work, what does that mean? All you have is sitting at home and watching TV